A chilling fog clung to the streets of London as Hercule Poirot stepped into the dimly lit drawing room, only to hear a blood-curdling scream echo from behind an antique painted screen, where a lifeless body lay slumped, its secrets waiting to unravel. Welcome to the gripping tale of Poirot and the corpse found behind the painted screen. Grab a cup of tea, take a seat, and immerse yourself in this mystery. If you're enjoying the suspense, hit that subscribe button, as your support means the world to us. Chapter 1. The invitation to Ashford Manor. Hercule Poirot adjusted his immaculate moustache in the reflection of the train window, watching the English countryside blur past like a watercolour painting coming undone in the rain. It was a crisp autumn afternoon in 1935, and Poirot had received an unexpected invitation from an old acquaintance, Lady Evelyn Harrington, to spend the weekend at her sprawling estate, Ashford Manor. The letter had arrived just 2 days prior, penned in elegant script that hinted at urgency without revealing too much. "My dear Poirot," it read, "I fear shadows are gathering over my home. Your little grey cells might be just what we need to dispel them. Do come, Evelyn." Poirot, ever the detective at heart, couldn't resist such a cryptic summons. He had packed his suitcase with his finest suits, a few mystery novels for light reading, and that unshakable curiosity that had solved countless enigmas across Europe. As the train chugged into the rural station near Ashford, Poirot stepped onto the platform, greeted by a brisk wind that carried the scent of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke. A chauffeur in a smart uniform awaited him, tipping his hat with a polite, "Monsieur Poirot, Lady Harrington sends her regards." The drive to the manor wound through narrow lanes lined with ancient oaks, their branches twisting like fingers reaching for secrets in the sky. Poirot leaned back in the leather seat of the Rolls-Royce, pondering what troubles could beset such a picturesque place. Lady Evelyn was a widow of considerable wealth, known for her lavish parties and her collection of rare artifacts from the Orient. Rumours in London society whispered of family feuds over inheritance, but Poirot dismissed gossip until he could observe with his own eyes. Upon arrival, Ashford Manor loomed grandly against the fading light, a Tudor-style mansion with ivy-cloaked walls, mullioned windows glowing warmly, and chimneys puffing smoke like thoughtful sighs. Lady Evelyn herself greeted him at the massive oak door, her face a mask of forced cheer beneath perfectly coiffed silver hair. She was in her late 50s, dressed in a flowing emerald gown that matched the estate's lush gardens. "Hercule, how delightful you've come!" she exclaimed, embracing him lightly. "The others are already here. Let me introduce you." She led him into the grand hall, where polished wood floors creaked underfoot, and portraits of stern ancestors stared down from the walls. The gathering was a curious mix, as Poirot quickly noted with his keen eye for human dynamics. There was Sir Reginald Harrington, Lady Evelyn's brother-in-law, a burly man with a red face and a booming laugh that seemed to cover nervousness. He was a retired colonel, fond of brandy and tales of his Indian campaigns. Beside him stood his wife, Clara, a sharp-featured woman in her 40s, her eyes darting suspiciously around the room as if tallying the value of every silver candlestick. Then there was young Victor Langford, Lady Evelyn's nephew and apparent heir, a handsome fellow in his 20s with slicked-back hair and a charming smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He was accompanied by his fiancée, Amelia Thorne, a budding actress with golden curls and a laugh like tinkling bells, though Poirot detected a hint of desperation in her eagerness to please. Rounding out the party was Dr. Elias Blackwood, the family physician, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a quiet demeanour that suggested he knew more than he let on. And finally, Miss Lydia Forbes, Lady Evelyn's personal secretary, a mousy woman in plain attire, clutching a notebook as if it were a shield. As they all exchanged pleasantries over pre-dinner sherry in the drawing room, Poirot observed the undercurrents. Sir Reginald's subtle jabs at Victor's frivolous lifestyle, Clara's whispered complaints about the manor's upkeep costs, and Amelia's flirtatious glances that made Victor shift uncomfortably. Lady Evelyn, ever the hostess, steered conversations to safer topics like the upcoming hunt season or the latest London theatre productions. The drawing room itself was a treasure trove, adorned with exotic curiosities from Lady Evelyn's late husband's travels. A massive Chinese-painted screen dominated one corner, a folding masterpiece of silk depicting mythical dragons and cherry blossoms, its vibrant colours contrasting the room's muted tones. Behind it, a small alcove held a writing desk and a few potted ferns, creating a secluded nook. Poirot admired the screen, running his fingers over its intricate details. "Magnifique," he murmured. "Such artistry hides as much as it reveals, no?" Lady Evelyn smiled faintly. "Indeed, Hercule. My husband brought it back from Shanghai. It's said to bring good fortune, or perhaps ward off evil spirits." Dinner was served in the opulent dining hall, under a chandelier that cast dancing lights on crystal glasses and fine china. The menu featured roasted pheasant, buttery potatoes, and a rich Bordeaux that loosened tongues just enough. Conversations flowed, but Poirot noted tensions bubbling beneath. Victor announced his plans to modernize the estate if he inherited, prompting Sir Reginald to snort, "Over my dead body, boy. Tradition built this place." Clara chimed in about unnecessary extravagances, eyeing Amelia's diamond necklace with envy. Dr. Blackwood remained mostly silent, only speaking to inquire about Lady Evelyn's health, which she waved off as just a touch of fatigue. As dessert, a decadent chocolate mousse was cleared away. The group retired back to the drawing room for coffee and liqueurs. The fire crackled merrily in the hearth, casting flickering shadows that played tricks on the walls. Poirot settled into a plush armchair, sipping his tisane, content to listen and observe. Lady Evelyn pulled him aside briefly. "Hercule, I'm glad you're here. There's discord in the family. Small thefts, anonymous letters suggesting infidelity. Nothing concrete, but I feel watched." Poirot nodded sagely. "Fear not, madame. The little grey cells are already at work." The evening progressed with card games and light music from a gramophone. Victor and Amelia excused themselves early, claiming tiredness from the journey. Sir Reginald and Clara argued mildly over a hand of bridge, while Miss Forbes scribbled notes in her corner. Dr. Blackwood checked his watch frequently, as if expecting something. Lady Evelyn retired around 11, bidding everyone good night with a weary smile. Poirot lingered, pretending to read a book, but his mind catalogued every detail: the creak of floorboards upstairs, the distant hoot of an owl, the way the painted screen seemed to shimmer in the firelight. It was just past midnight when the scream shattered the silence, a piercing wail from the drawing room itself. Poirot, who had been dozing lightly, bolted upright, rushing in with the others who tumbled from their rooms in nightclothes. They found Miss Forbes pointing hysterically at the painted screen. "There, behind it! Oh God!" Poirot pushed forward, his heart steady despite the chaos. Folding back the screen revealed a gruesome sight. Sir Reginald Harrington, sprawled on the floor in a pool of blood, an antique dagger protruding from his chest. His eyes stared blankly at the ceiling, and clutched in his hand was a crumpled note that read simply, "The shadows know." Gasps filled the room. Lady Evelyn fainted into Dr. Blackwood's arms. Victor stammered, "Uncle Reggie, who could have done this?" Clara wailed dramatically, while Amelia clung to Victor, her face pale. Miss Forbes babbled about hearing a thud. Poirot knelt beside the body, careful not to disturb the scene. The dagger was from the manor's collection, displayed on a nearby wall, now missing its spot. No signs of struggle, but the alcove's window was slightly ajar, letting in a chill draught. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered. "Murder at Ashford Manor. And so it begins." As the police were summoned, though a storm delayed their arrival, Poirot took charge quietly, instructing everyone to remain calm and not touch anything. He examined the note. Fresh ink. No fingerprints visible to the naked eye. Sir Reginald's watch had stopped at 12:05, suggesting the time of death. Questions swirled in Poirot's mind. Why was Sir Reginald behind the screen? Who had motive? Inheritance, jealousy, hidden grudges. The group huddled in the library, sipping brandy to steady nerves, each eyeing the others suspiciously. Poirot addressed them gravely. Mes amis, a tragedy has struck, but rest assured, Hercule Poirot will uncover the truth. For now, let us reflect on the evening's events. He mentally listed suspects. Victor, who stood to gain. Clara, resentful of her husband's overshadowed status. Amelia, perhaps hiding a secret affair. Dr. Blackwood, with access to poisons or knowledge of vulnerabilities. Even Miss Forbes, unassuming but always present. And Lady Evelyn herself, though her shock seemed genuine. As the chapter of this fateful night drew to a close, the manor felt heavier, its walls whispering secrets. The corpse behind the painted screen was just the beginning. What dark revelations awaited in the shadows of Ashford? Stay tuned as the mystery deepens in the next chapter, where Poirot begins his interrogations and uncovers the first clues. Chapter 2. The interrogations begin. The morning after the grim discovery at Ashford Manor dawned grey and heavy, with rain lashing the windows like a chorus of restless spirits. Hercule Poirot stood in the library, his hands clasped behind his back, surveying the assembled household. The air was thick with unease, each person avoiding the other's gazes, their faces etched with sleeplessness and suspicion. The local constable had arrived at dawn, a stout man named Inspector Davies, but he deferred to Poirot's reputation, allowing the detective to take the lead while the storm delayed Scotland Yard's arrival. Poirot's sharp eyes missed nothing. The way Victor Langford fidgeted with his cufflinks, the tremor in Clara Harrington's hands as she clutched a handkerchief, the unnatural stillness of Dr. Elias Blackwood, and the way Miss Lydia Forbes kept her eyes fixed on her notebook, as if it held the answers to their nightmare. Poirot began with a calm authority, his Belgian accent cutting through the tension. Mes amis, a crime has been committed, and the truth hides among us. I will speak with each of you alone to understand your movements last night. Honesty, it is the only path to clarity. He chose the morning room for his interviews, a cosy space with floral wallpaper and a view of the sodden gardens. A small table held his notebook, a silver pen, and a steaming cup of tisane, which he sipped thoughtfully between questions. The household agreed to cooperate, though their reluctance hung like damp fog. First was Lady Evelyn Harrington, the hostess, who entered with the grace of a woman accustomed to command. Though her eyes were red-rimmed, she wore a simple black dress, mourning already for her brother-in-law. "Hercule, this is a nightmare," she said, sinking into a chair. "Reginald was difficult, yes, but murdered. In my home." Poirot leaned forward, his voice gentle but probing. "Madame, tell me of your evening after dinner. Did you see Sir Reginald before the scream?" Evelyn recounted retiring to her room around 11, reading for a time, then hearing the commotion that drew her downstairs. She swore she'd seen no one near the drawing room. Poirot noted her composure, but caught a flicker of fear when he mentioned the anonymous letters she'd referenced the night before. "They were petty threats," she admitted. "Accusations of Victor's gambling or Clara's greed. I burned them." Poirot's moustache twitched. Burned evidence was inconvenient, but her candour was a start. Next came Victor Langford, the heir, his charm dimmed by pale cheeks and bloodshot eyes. He sprawled in the chair, attempting nonchalance but betraying nerves in his tapping foot. "I was in bed with Amelia by 11:30, he said, a touch too quickly. "We were exhausted from the train. Didn't hear a thing until Lydia's scream." Poirot pressed him on his relationship with Sir Reginald. Victor admitted to arguments over the estate's future. "Uncle Reggie wanted to keep this place a museum to the past. I think it could be a modern success. Hotels, events, that sort of thing. His ambition was clear, but was it motive enough for murder? Poirot jotted a note. Verify Victor's whereabouts. Amelia Thorne followed, her actress's poise faltering under Poirot's scrutiny. Her golden curls were pinned haphazardly and her hands twisted in her lap. She confirmed Victor's story, claiming they'd retired together and heard nothing until the scream. But Poirot noticed her hesitation when asked about Sir Reginald. He didn't like me, she confessed. Thought I was after Victor's inheritance. Called me a gold digger once. Her eyes welled up, but Poirot wondered if the tears were genuine or a performance. He asked about the dagger. She claimed no knowledge of it beyond seeing it on the wall. Her nervousness suggested more, but Poirot let her go for now. Clara Harrington entered with a scowl, her sharp features pinched with indignation. "This is outrageous, accusing us like common criminals," she snapped, but sat when Poirot gestured calmly. She admitted to arguing with Reginald over cards, but insisted she went to bed alone after he stayed behind to smoke. He was in a foul mood, muttering about debts and betrayals, she said. Poirot's ears pricked up. "Debts, madame? Whose?" Clara shrugged. He didn't say. Probably Victor's gambling nonsense. Her disdain for her nephew was palpable, but her alibi was thin. Alone in her room, unseen by others. Dr. Elias Blackwood was next, his reserved demeanour a stark contrast to Clara's bluster. He adjusted his glasses and spoke precisely, like a man weighing every word. He'd left the drawing room shortly after 11, checking on Lady Evelyn's medication before retiring. "I heard nothing unusual until the scream," he said. Poirot asked about Sir Reginald's health. "He was robust despite his drinking," Blackwood replied. "No signs of heart trouble or weakness." The dagger, he confirmed, was sharp enough to kill instantly. Poirot noted the doctor's access to the household and his calm under pressure. Too calm, perhaps. Miss Lydia Forbes was the last, her mousy appearance belying a sharp memory. She recounted taking notes in the drawing room until nearly midnight, then stepping out to fetch a glass of water from the kitchen. On her return, she'd noticed the screen slightly askew and investigated, only to find Sir Reginald's body. "I screamed before I could think," she said, shuddering. Poirot asked why she was working so late. Lady Evelyn had me cataloguing her artifacts. The screen was one of them. Her story held, but her proximity to the crime scene made her a key witness, or suspect. With the interviews done, Poirot stepped outside to the terrace, ignoring the drizzle to clear his mind. The manor's gardens stretched before him, a maze of hedges and rose bushes now drooping under the rain. Each suspect had a story, but cracks were forming. Victor's ambition, Amelia's defensiveness, Clara's vague alibi, Blackwood's coolness, Lydia's convenient timing, and what of the note in Sir Reginald's hand? The shadows know. Poirot's little grey cells hummed. He needed to examine the crime scene again, to find the clue that would unravel this web. As the rain pattered on his umbrella, Poirot felt the weight of the mystery deepen. The manor held its secrets tightly, but he was determined to pry them loose. The next chapter would take him back to the drawing room, where the painted screen and its hidden alcove might reveal more than the killer intended. Stay tuned as Poirot digs deeper into the shadows of Ashford Manor. Chapter 3. Secrets of the Painted Screen. The rain had softened to a drizzle by midday, casting a silvery sheen over Ashford Manor's stone facade. Hercule Poirot stood in the drawing room, his eyes fixed on the Chinese painted screen that had concealed Sir Reginald Harrington's body. The silk panels glowed faintly in the grey light filtering through the windows, their dragons and cherry blossoms seeming to dance with hidden meaning. Inspector Davies, the local constable, hovered nearby, scribbling notes as Poirot examined the crime scene with meticulous care. The rest of the household had been confined to the library under the watchful eye of a young sergeant, leaving Poirot free to explore the alcove where death had struck. His goal was clear: to uncover physical clues that might point to the killer's identity or motive, and to understand why this secluded nook had become a stage for murder. Poirot began with the screen itself, running his gloved fingers along its polished wooden frame. The panels were heavy, but moved smoothly on their hinges, suggesting they'd been recently adjusted. He noted a faint scratch on the floorboards where the screen met the wall, as if it had been shifted hastily. "Interesting," he murmured, crouching to inspect the mark. It was fresh. The wood splintered slightly, indicating recent movement, perhaps to hide the body or to stage the scene. He turned his attention to the alcove, a small space barely large enough for a writing desk, a chair, and a potted fern. The desk was cluttered with papers, a few bills, a catalogue of Lady Evelyn's artifacts, and a half-finished letter in Sir Reginald's bold handwriting addressed to his solicitor. The letter mentioned concerns about the estate's future, but was maddeningly vague. Poirot tucked it into his pocket for later study. The dagger, still embedded in Sir Reginald's body when discovered, had been removed by Inspector Davies for evidence, but Poirot examined its empty display case on the wall. The other daggers, ornate with jade handles, remained in place, their blades gleaming. The missing weapon was distinctive, its hilt carved with a phoenix, a detail Poirot recalled from the previous evening's tour of the room. "A thief does not take a dagger to steal," he mused aloud. This was chosen for a purpose. He checked the alcove's window, slightly ajar the night before. It opened onto a narrow ledge overlooking the garden, too high for an easy climb but not impossible for someone agile or desperate. No footprints marred the muddy ground below, though the rain might have washed them away. Poirot's attention shifted to the crumpled note found in Sir Reginald's hand. "The shadows know." Inspector Davies had placed it in a small evidence bag, and Poirot studied it through the clear plastic. The paper was thick, cream-coloured, torn from a larger sheet, perhaps from the Manor's own stationery. The ink was fresh, the handwriting hurried but deliberate, with no flourishes to suggest a particular author. A message to taunt or to warn? Poirot wondered. He asked Davies to check the Manor's writing desks for matching paper, a task the inspector accepted with a nod. As Poirot paced the alcove, he noticed a faint smudge on the desk's edge, a trace of powder, pale and fine, like talc or chalk. He scraped a sample into a handkerchief, suspecting it might be significant. Could it be from a cosmetic, a cleaning product, or something more sinister? He also found a single strand of dark hair caught in the fern's leaves, too short to belong to Amelia's golden curls or Lady Evelyn's silver locks. It might match Clara's or Lydia's hair, or even an outsider's. Poirot bagged it carefully, his mind cataloguing possibilities. The drawing room's other contents offered little at first glance. The gramophone still held its record from the night before, a soft jazz tune frozen mid-note. The card table bore traces of the bridge game, scattered cards and a half-empty glass of brandy, presumably Sir Reginald's. Poirot sniffed it cautiously. It smelled only of liquor, no hint of poison. He moved to the fireplace where embers from the previous night lay cold. A small pile of ash caught his eye, not from wood, but from paper. Kneeling, he sifted through it with a poker, finding fragments too charred to read, but clearly from a letter or document. "Someone burned something in haste," he said to Davies. "We must find what they wish to hide." Poirot stepped back, mentally reconstructing the night of the murder. Sir Reginald had lingered in the drawing room, perhaps to smoke or brood. Someone had met him here, behind the screen, and struck with the dagger. The note suggested premeditation, yet the scene felt staged, almost theatrical. Was the killer among the household, or had an outsider slipped in through the window? The storm's timing made an external intruder plausible, but Poirot's instincts leaned towards someone within the Manor's walls, someone who knew the dagger's place, the screen's seclusion, and Sir Reginald's habits. Inspector Davies interrupted Poirot's thoughts. "Monsieur Poirot, we found a box of stationery in the study matching the note's paper. It's common here. Anyone could have used it." Poirot nodded, unsurprised. "And the household?" Any signs of disturbance elsewhere? Davies shook his head. All quiet. Though the staff report a side door was unlocked this morning. Could have been an oversight. Poirot's eyes narrowed. An unlocked door was no accident in a house of secrets. As the afternoon waned, Poirot felt the puzzle's pieces shifting. The scratch on the floor, the powder, the hair, the burned paper. All were threads in a tapestry he had yet to fully see. He needed to probe deeper, to test alibis and uncover motives hidden in the Manor's past. The household was restless, their whispers audible even from the library. Poirot knew time was short before fear or guilt drove the killer to act again. With the drawing room sealed for further investigation, Poirot prepared to confront the suspects with his findings. The painted screen had guarded its secret well, but it had begun to speak. The next chapter would see him unraveling the tangled relationships of Ashford Manor, where old grudges and hidden truths might point to the murderer's hand. Stay tuned as the mystery tightens its grip. Chapter 4. Tangled Bonds and Hidden Truths. The late afternoon light filtered through Ashford Manor's tall windows, casting long shadows that seemed to twist with the secrets of its inhabitants. Hercule Poirot sat in the library, a leather-bound volume of Shakespeare untouched on his lap, his mind instead dissecting the web of relationships among the household. The murder of Sir Reginald Harrington was no random act. It was personal, rooted in the tensions that simmered beneath the Manor's polished surface. Poirot had instructed Inspector Davies to keep the suspects separated, but he could sense their unease through the walls. Whispers, pacing, the clink of a glass betraying nervous hands. Today, he would probe deeper, seeking the motives that might have driven a dagger into Sir Reginald's heart. Poirot began by summoning Victor Langford for a private conversation in the morning room. The young heir entered with a forced swagger, his tie slightly askew, betraying a sleepless night. Poirot wasted no time. "Monsieur Victor, your uncle opposed your plans for the estate. Did this cause bitterness?" Victor's jaw tightened, but he shrugged. "We disagreed, sure. He was stuck in the past, wanted to preserve every dusty relic. I saw potential, modernizing, profiting. But kill him? That's absurd." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And yet you stand to inherit if Lady Evelyn passes. Did Sir Reginald threaten your future?" Victor hesitated, then admitted his uncle had recently consulted a lawyer about the estate's trust, hinting at changes. "He didn't trust me," Victor muttered. "Thought I'd squander it all." Poirot noted the resentment in his voice, a spark that could ignite into violence. Next, Poirot spoke with Amelia Thorne, who glided in with the grace of a stage star but sat stiffly, her hands folded tightly. "Mademoiselle, you mentioned Sir Reginald's dislike for you. Was there more to his accusations?" Amelia's cheeks flushed. "He was cruel, called me a fortune hunter, said I'd ruin Victor." She revealed that Sir Reginald had threatened to cut Victor's allowance unless he ended their engagement. "I love Victor," she insisted, her voice trembling. "But Reginald made it clear I wasn't welcome." Poirot probed further, asking if she'd ever visited the drawing room alone that night. "No," she said quickly, too quickly. Her eyes darted to the door, and Poirot marked her as someone hiding more than heartbreak. Clara Harrington was next, her sharp tongue barely restrained as she sat across from Poirot. "This is a waste of time," she snapped. "I had no reason to harm Reginald." Poirot raised an eyebrow. "Madame, you spoke of debts and betrayals last night. Were these yours or another's?" Clara's lips thinned. She admitted Reginald had been pressuring her to repay a loan he'd given years ago, one she couldn't easily afford. "He was lording it over me, threatening to tell Evelyn I was mismanaging funds." Her anger was palpable, but she insisted she'd been in her room, alone, when the murder occurred. Poirot sensed truth mixed with evasion. Clara's pride could mask darker impulses. Dr. Elias Blackwood entered with his usual reserve, his glasses reflecting the dim light. Poirot asked about his role in the family, beyond medicine. You know their secrets, no? Did Sir Reginald confide in you? Blackwood admitted Reginald had visited him weeks prior, complaining of insomnia and vague fears. He mentioned enemies but gave no names, Blackwood said. He was drinking heavily, which didn't help. Poirot inquired about the powder found in the alcove, suggesting it might be medicinal. Blackwood shook his head. Not from my kit. Perhaps a cosmetic or something from the Manor's stores. His calm demeanour frustrated Poirot, who sensed the doctor was holding back. Miss Lydia Forbes followed, clutching her notebook like a lifeline. Poirot softened his tone. Mademoiselle, you were near the drawing room when the crime occurred. Did you see anyone else? Lydia's eyes widened. No, it was quiet. I only stepped out for water. She revealed she'd overheard arguments between Sir Reginald and Victor days earlier about money and the estate. Sir Reginald was furious, said Victor was ungrateful. Poirot asked about her own relationship with the victim. Lydia flushed. He was kind to me, gave me advice on investments once, but I'm just the secretary. Her humility seemed genuine, but Poirot wondered if her quiet presence masked ambition. After the interviews, Poirot strolled the Manor's halls, piecing together the motives. Victor's inheritance was at stake, threatened by Sir Reginald's plans. Amelia faced losing her future with Victor. Clara's financial strain and humiliation could have pushed her to desperation. Blackwood's knowledge of the family's weaknesses made him a potential manipulator. Lydia, though seemingly insignificant, had access and opportunity. Even Lady Evelyn, absent from today's talks, might have secrets tied to the anonymous letters she'd mentioned. Poirot paused by a portrait of Sir Reginald in his military days, his stern face staring down. The man had enemies within his own family, but which one had acted? The note, the shadows know, suggested someone close, someone who knew the Manor's rhythms. Poirot's thoughts turned to the burned paper in the fireplace. He needed to trace its origins, perhaps through the Manor's staff or hidden correspondence. As evening approached, the Manor grew quieter, the storm's remnants fading into a restless calm. Poirot felt the killer watching, perhaps growing bolder. The next chapter would take him into the Manor's hidden corners, servants' quarters, locked rooms, and forgotten letters, where the truth might lie buried. Stay tuned as Poirot unearths more of Ashford's dark history. Chapter 5. Whispers from the servants' quarters. The evening shadows stretched long across Ashford Manor's polished floors as Hercule Poirot made his way toward the servants' quarters, a part of the house rarely seen by guests, but pulsing with the estate's hidden heartbeat. The murder of Sir Reginald Harrington had cast a pall over the grand rooms, but Poirot knew the truth often lurked in overlooked corners, among those who cleaned, cooked, and observed in silence. The household staff, he reasoned, might hold fragments of the puzzle. A stray comment, a late-night sighting, or a clue to the burned paper he'd found in the drawing room. With Inspector Davies occupied interviewing the gardener about the unlocked side door, Poirot took the opportunity to explore this uncharted territory alone, his footsteps muffled by the thick rugs lining the narrow back staircase. The servants' quarters were tucked beneath the Manor's eaves, a warren of small rooms smelling of wax polish and laundry soap. Poirot knocked softly on the door of Mrs. Agnes Porter, the housekeeper, a stout woman in her 60s with a no-nonsense air. She welcomed him into her tidy parlour, her apron crisp despite the late hour. "Monsieur Poirot, I've heard of your reputation," she said, offering a chair. "Terrible business, Sir Reginald's death." Poirot nodded, his eyes scanning her face for hints of unease. "Madame, you see all that happens in this house. Tell me, what did you observe last night?" Agnes recounted serving coffee in the drawing-room, then retiring to her duties. She'd heard Sir Reginald arguing with someone. Male, she thought, near the library around 10, but couldn't catch the words. "He was in a state, sir, red-faced and pacing," she said. Poirot pressed her about the stationery matching the murder note. Agnes confirmed it was kept in the study. accessible to anyone in the household, but added, "Miss Forbes uses it most for Lady Evelyn's letters." Next, Poirot spoke with Thomas, the young footman, whose nervous stammer betrayed his awe of the detective. Thomas had been polishing silver in the pantry until 11, then took a tray of glasses to the kitchen. He admitted seeing Victor Langford near the drawing-room earlier, looking out of sorts and muttering to himself. "Didn't think much of it, sir," Thomas said. "Master Victor's often moody." When asked about the side door, Thomas blushed. "I might have left it unlocked, sir, after fetching coal. But no one came through, I swear." Poirot's moustache twitched. An unlocked door was a thread he'd pull later. The cook, Mrs. Elsie Dunn, was less forthcoming, her hands busy kneading dough as she spoke. She'd been in the kitchen all evening, preparing breakfast rolls, and saw nothing unusual, but her eyes flicked away when Poirot mentioned the powder found in the alcove. "Could be flour, sir, from my baking," she offered, too quickly. Poirot doubted flour would drift so far from the kitchen, but noted her unease. He asked about tensions among the family. Elsie hesitated, then whispered, "Sir Reginald was hard on Miss Amelia, sir. Overheard him call her a schemer in the hall last week. She cried after." Poirot's final stop was the maid, Jenny, a slight girl of 19 who trembled under his gaze. She'd been tidying the upstairs bedrooms during the critical hours, but admitted to passing the drawing-room around midnight to fetch linens. "I saw Miss Forbes there, sir, writing by the lamp," Jenny said. "And I heard a thump, like something falling, but I thought it was just the wind." Poirot's eyes sharpened. "You did not investigate?" Jenny shook her head, frightened. "Didn't want to get in trouble, sir." Her story aligned with Lydia's, but the thump intrigued Poirot. Perhaps the moment of the murder. As he left the quarters, Poirot's mind churned. The servants' accounts painted a picture of a fractious household. Victor's agitation, Amelia's humiliation, Lydia's late-night presence, and an unlocked door that invited suspicion. The burned paper remained a mystery, but the stationery's accessibility widened the suspect pool. The powder, too, nagged at him. Flour seemed unlikely, but cosmetics or something medicinal might fit. He recalled Dr. Blackwood's denial and wondered if the doctor's calm hid knowledge of such substances. Descending the staircase, Poirot paused by a small window overlooking the garden. The rain had stopped, leaving a mist that cloaked the hedges like a shroud. The manor's secrets were piling up, arguments overheard, doors left unlocked, a thump in the night. Each clue was a stepping stone, but to where? Poirot felt the killer's presence, a shadow moving just out of sight, perhaps watching his every move. He resolved to search the study next, where the stationery and perhaps other secrets lay. The household was restless, their alibis fraying under scrutiny. The next chapter would delve into the manor's private papers and locked drawers, where Poirot might find the key to the cryptic note and the murderer's intent. Stay tuned as the mystery of Ashford Manor grows ever more intricate. Chapter 6. The Study's Hidden Truths. The air in Ashford Manor's study was thick with the scent of old leather and ink, a sanctuary of secrets tucked away from the grandeur of the main rooms. Hercule Poirot closed the heavy oak door behind him, his eyes sweeping over the cluttered desk, towering bookshelves, and a locked cabinet that seemed to hum with untold stories. The murder of Sir Reginald Harrington had left the household on edge, and Poirot sensed that the answers to the killer's identity might lie here, among papers and private correspondence. The afternoon light filtered through a single window, illuminating dust motes that danced like clues waiting to be caught. With Inspector Davies still questioning the outdoor staff about the unlocked side door, Poirot had this quiet moment to probe the manor's heart. He began with the desk, where a box of cream-coloured stationery matched the murder note's paper. Poirot sifted through its contents: bills for household expenses, invitations to London events, and a draft of Lady Evelyn's will, which named Victor as primary heir, but included provisions for Sir Reginald and Clara. A clause caught his eye. Sir Reginald had the authority to contest the will if he deemed Victor unfit. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured. This gave Victor a clear motive, but was it enough to kill? He found no trace of the anonymous letters Lady Evelyn had mentioned, suggesting they'd been destroyed or hidden elsewhere. Next, Poirot turned to the locked cabinet, its brass keyhole gleaming defiantly. He glanced around, then produced a small pick from his pocket, a tool he carried for such occasions. With a deft twist, the lock clicked open, revealing a trove of documents, financial ledgers, old letters, and a small diary bound in red leather, embossed with Sir Reginald's initials. Poirot opened it carefully. The entries were sporadic, detailing business dealings in India, and more recently, concerns about the manor's finances. One entry, dated a week prior, read, "Victor's debts grow. He begs for more, but I'll not fund his ruin. Evelyn must know." Another, 2 days old, was more cryptic. "Clara knows too much. Must act soon." Poirot's pulse quickened. What did Clara know? And what action had Sir Reginald planned? Among the papers, Poirot found a folded note, not burned but crumpled, as if discarded in haste. It was written in a different hand from the murder note, less hurried, and read, "Meet me at midnight. We must settle this." No signature, no recipient named, but the paper matched the manor's stationery. Was this a lure for Sir Reginald, drawing him to the drawing room? Poirot tucked it away, his mind racing. The diary and note suggested a web of financial strain and family distrust, with Sir Reginald at its centre. He moved to the bookshelves, scanning titles for anything out of place. A worn volume of Dickens caught his attention, its spine slightly misaligned. Pulling it out, he found a hidden compartment behind it, a small hollow containing a vial of white powder, identical to the smudge in the alcove. Poirot held it to the light, noting its fine texture. Not flour, not cosmetic, but perhaps a sedative or poison. He wrapped it carefully in his handkerchief, resolving to have it analysed when Scotland Yard arrived. The discovery raised questions. Did Dr. Blackwood, with his medical knowledge, have access to such substances? Or was this a plant to mislead? Poirot's search was interrupted by a soft creak from the hallway. He froze, listening, but no footsteps followed. The manor's silence felt alive, as if it were watching him. He checked the door, still locked, and resumed his work, but the sound lingered in his mind. Someone was moving through the house, perhaps aware of his progress. He found one final item, a photograph tucked in the diary, showing Sir Reginald and a younger woman, not Clara, in an intimate pose. The back was inscribed, R&M, Shanghai, 1920. A mistress? A secret kept from the family? Poirot pocketed it, sensing it might explain the betrayals Clara had mentioned. As he closed the cabinet, Poirot pieced together the study's revelations. Sir Reginald's diary hinted at Victor's debts and Clara's knowledge of something damning. The crumpled note suggested a planned meeting, possibly the moment of murder. The powder linked the study to the crime scene, and the photograph opened a door to the past. Each find tightened the noose around the suspects, but who held the rope? Poirot needed to confront the household with these clues, to watch their faces for guilt or fear. The study's clock chimed 5, a reminder that time was slipping away. The killer was still among them, perhaps growing bolder as Poirot closed in. The next chapter would see him testing his suspects' reactions, using the diary and photograph to provoke truths or lies. Stay tuned as the shadows of Ashford Manor begin to speak louder. Chapter 7. Faces of guilt. The evening settled over Ashford Manor like a heavy curtain, the air thick with the promise of revelations. Hercule Poirot gathered the household in the grand dining hall, its long mahogany table gleaming under the chandelier's soft glow. The suspects sat uneasily, their faces a gallery of tension. Lady Evelyn's weary elegance, Victor's forced bravado, Amelia's anxious glances, Clara's pinched scowl, Dr. Blackwood's impassive calm, and Miss Forbes's nervous fidgeting. Inspector Davies stood by the door, his notebook ready, while Poirot took centre stage, his small frame commanding the room. He held the red leather diary, the crumpled note, the vial of powder, and the mysterious photograph, each a key to unlock the truth behind Sir Reginald Harrington's murder. Tonight, he would test the suspect's reactions, watching for the slip that betrayed a killer. Poirot began with measured calm, his voice cutting through the silence. Mes amis, the clues I have found point to a crime born of secrets. Let us see what truths you can offer. He held up the diary, its leather catching the light. Sir Reginald wrote of debts and distrust. Monsieur Victor, he feared your financial recklessness. Victor's face reddened, but he leaned back, arms crossed. He was always on about my spending. Didn't mean I'd kill him. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Yet he planned to alter the will, non? To limit your inheritance. Victor's jaw clenched, but he said nothing, his silence louder than words. Turning to Clara, Poirot read from the diary. Clara knows too much. Must act soon. Madame, what did you know that threatened Sir Reginald? Clara's eyes flashed with indignation. That's nonsense. He was paranoid, always thinking we were after his precious influence. But her hands trembled, and Poirot noted the sweat on her brow. He pressed further, mentioning the loan she owed Reginald. He threatened to expose your debts, oui? Clara snapped. He was a bully, but I didn't stab him. Her vehemence felt rehearsed, and Poirot marked it as such. Next, he produced the crumpled note. Meet me at midnight. We must settle this. He watched the room closely. Who wrote this? Luring Sir Reginald to his death. Amelia gasped softly, her hand flying to her mouth, while Dr. Blackwood's glasses slipped slightly, his fingers adjusting them too quickly. Lydia Forbes stared at her lap, her pen scratching aimlessly. Lady Evelyn spoke up, her voice steady. Hercule, those anonymous letters I mentioned. Could this be one? Poirot shook his head. No, madame, this is different. But it suggests a rendezvous, planned and deadly. He then revealed the vial of powder, holding it aloft. This was found in the study, hidden behind a book, and matches the smudge in the alcove. Dr. Blackwood, is this a substance you recognize? Blackwood's face remained unreadable. I've told you it's not from my medical supplies. Perhaps a household product. Poirot tilted his head. Or a poison, no? Available to one with knowledge. Blackwood's lips tightened. But he offered no defense, his silence a wall Poirot could not yet breach. Finally, Poirot held up the photograph of Sir Reginald with the unknown woman. R&M, Shanghai, 1920. He passed it to Lady Evelyn, whose face paled. This was your husband's past, madam. Did it stir jealousy or betrayal? Evelyn's voice trembled. I knew of his indiscretions abroad, but that was long ago. Clara snorted softly, and Poirot caught the sound. Madame Clara, you knew of this woman. Clara hesitated, then admitted. Reginald boasted of his conquests sometimes, said she was a singer, long gone. Her tone held a bitter edge, as if the memory stung. Amelia broke the tension, her voice shaking. Why are you tormenting us? We're grieving! Poirot's gaze softened, but only slightly. Mademoiselle, grief does not hide guilt. Your fear of Sir Reginald's accusations, did it push you to act? Amelia clung to Victor's arm, tears brimming. I'd never hurt anyone. Victor pulled her close, glaring at Poirot. Leave her alone. She's no killer. Their unity was touching, but Poirot wondered if it masked a shared secret. Lydia Forbes, silent until now, spoke up. Monsieur Poirot, I found something odd today in the study. She produced a small key, tarnished and old. It was under the rug near the desk. I don't know what it opens. Poirot took it, his mind racing. A key suggested a locked box or drawer, perhaps holding the anonymous letters or another clue. He thanked Lydia, noting her initiative. Was she helping or deflecting suspicion? As the meeting ended, Poirot observed the group dispersing, their faces etched with fear, anger, or calculation. The diary had exposed Victor's motive. Clara's secrets, and Evelyn's past pain. The note hinted at a planned murder. The powder suggested foul play, and the photograph opened old wounds. The key, though, was new, a tangible link to the manor's hidden places. Poirot felt the killer's presence, a shadow growing restless as he closed in. He retired to his room, the key heavy in his pocket. Tomorrow, he would search for what it unlocked, delving deeper into the manor's past and its inhabitants' lies. The next chapter would see him chasing the key's secret as the truth behind the painted screen drew closer. Stay tuned as Poirot unravels more of Ashford's deadly mystery. Chapter 8. The Key's Secret. The morning sun broke through the clouds, casting a pale light over Ashford Manor's sprawling gardens, but the warmth did little to dispel the chill of suspicion that gripped the house. Hercule Poirot stood in his guest room, turning the tarnished key Miss Lydia Forbes had found over in his hands. Its weight was slight, but its potential was immense, a possible link to the locked secrets of Sir Reginald Harrington's murder. The diary, the note, the powder, and the photograph had painted a picture of a family torn by greed and grudges. But Poirot sensed the key might open a door to the killer's identity. With Inspector Davies coordinating with the arriving Scotland Yard officers, Poirot set out to discover what the key unlocked, his mind sharp and his steps purposeful. He began in the study, where Lydia had found the key under the rug. The room was as he'd left it, its shelves heavy with books and its desk strewn with papers. Poirot tested the key in the desk's drawers, but none fit. The locked cabinet, already opened by his pick, yielded no new locks. He moved to the drawing room, where the painted screen stood silent, its dragons watching. The alcove's writing desk had a small drawer, but the key was too large for its delicate lock. Frustration crept in, but Poirot's little grey cells refused to falter. "The key is old," he murmured. "It belongs to something forgotten, perhaps in a less frequented part of the manor." His search led him to the upper floors, to a corridor lined with locked rooms used for storage or guest quarters rarely occupied. One door, its paint chipped and handle dusty, caught his attention. The key slid into the lock with a satisfying click, and the door creaked open to reveal a small attic room, cluttered with trunks, faded tapestries, and cobwebs. The air was musty, thick with the scent of time. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he spotted a wooden chest in the corner, its lock matching the key's design. He knelt, inserted the key, and opened the chest with a soft groan of hinges. Inside was a trove of Sir Reginald's past, letters tied with ribbon, military medals, and a journal older than the red diary. Its pages yellowed. Poirot flipped through it, finding entries from Reginald's time in Shanghai, 1920. They spoke of a woman named Mei Ling, a singer he'd loved passionately but left behind when he returned to England. "Her betrayal cut deep," one entry read. "She kept my gift, the phoenix dagger." Poirot's breath caught. The murder weapon, with its phoenix hilt, was tied to this long-ago romance. Could someone in the household have known its significance, using it to send a message? Among the letters was one from Mei Ling, dated 1921, begging Reginald to return. "You left me with nothing but promises," she wrote. "The dagger is all I have." Tucked with it was a faded sketch of a young woman, unmistakably the M from the photograph. Poirot pondered. Had this past affair resurfaced to haunt Reginald? Perhaps Clara, who knew of his conquests, had used the dagger to mock his infidelity. Or had Victor, desperate for funds, found the chest and seen the dagger as a tool for murder? Poirot also found a small packet of white powder in the chest, identical to the vial from the study. A handwritten label read, "Sleeping Draught, Shanghai, 1919. Not poison then, but a sedative, strong enough to subdue a man before a fatal strike." Poirot pocketed it, his mind racing. The chest's contents linked the murder to Reginald's past, but how? The key's discovery by Lydia suggested she, too, might know more than she let on. As he closed the chest, A floorboard creaked behind him. Poirot spun, but the doorway was empty, the corridor silent. His pulse quickened. Someone had been watching, perhaps aware of the key's significance. He locked the chest and pocketed the key, resolving to keep it close. The attic room felt oppressive now, its shadows heavier with each revelation. Poirot descended, his thoughts a tangle of new questions. Was Mei Ling's dagger chosen deliberately? Did the sedative play a role in the murder? And who had followed him? Back in the main house, the household was gathered for lunch, their faces strained under the weight of scrutiny. Poirot said nothing of his find, instead observing their interactions. Victor whispered urgently to Amelia, who nodded nervously. Clara avoided Evelyn's gaze, while Dr. Blackwood ate in silence, his eyes flickering to Poirot. Lydia, ever the shadow, scribbled in her notebook. Poirot felt the killer's presence, a thread tightening around the manor's heart. The chest had opened a window to the past, but the present held the answers. Poirot needed to confront the suspects with the dagger's history and watch for cracks in their facades. The next chapter would see him pressing harder, using the Shanghai connection to unravel the motive behind the painted screen's deadly secret. Stay tuned as Poirot closes in on the truth. Chapter 9. The Shanghai Connection. The late afternoon light filtered through Ashford Manor's tall windows, painting the grand library in hues of gold and amber, but the warmth did nothing to ease the tension that clung to the air like damp mist. Hercule Poirot stood before the assembled household, the tarnished key and the contents of the attic chest burning in his mind. The Phoenix dagger, Sir Reginald Harrington's murder weapon, had a history tied to a woman named Mei Ling in Shanghai, a revelation that cast a new shadow over the crime. The sedative powder, the cryptic note, and the old journal had deepened the mystery, pointing to a motive rooted in the past, yet executed in the present. Tonight, Poirot would confront the suspects with the Shanghai connection, watching their faces for the flicker of guilt that might betray the killer. Inspector Davies and a Scotland Yard officer, newly arrived despite the storm's delays, stood by the library's oak doors, their presence a silent reminder of the law's looming judgment. Poirot began with a deliberate pace, his voice steady and commanding. Mes amis, the dagger that ended Sir Reginald's life is no ordinary weapon. It is a relic of his time in Shanghai, a gift to a woman named Mei Ling, a singer he loved and left behind. He held up the faded sketch from the attic chest, Mei Ling's delicate features staring out at the room. Lady Evelyn gasped softly, her hand rising to her throat, while Clara's eyes narrowed, her lips pursing as if biting back a retort. Victor shifted in his chair, his fingers drumming on the armrest, while Amelia clung to his side, her face pale. Dr. Blackwood adjusted his glasses, his expression unreadable, and Miss Forbes's pen froze mid-scratch, her eyes wide. Madame Evelyn, Poirot continued, turning to the hostess, you knew of your brother-in-law's indiscretions. Did this dagger stir old wounds? Evelyn's voice was barely a whisper. I accepted Reginald's past long ago. He was reckless in youth, but that was before my time with him. Her eyes glistened, but her composure held. Poirot noted her restraint, grief perhaps, but not surprise. Had she known of the dagger's significance? He pressed further. And the anonymous letters you burned, did they mention Shanghai or Mei Ling? Evelyn shook her head. They were vague, accusing Victor or Clara of disloyalty. Nothing about the past. Poirot sensed truth but also omission. Evelyn was protecting someone or something. Turning to Clara, Poirot's tone sharpened. Madame Clara, you spoke of Sir Reginald's boasts about his conquests. Did he mention Mei Ling or the dagger? Clara's scowl deepened, her hands twisting her handkerchief. He bragged about some singer, yes, years ago. Said she kept his gifts when he left her. I didn't care. Old stories, nothing to do with me. But her voice cracked, and Poirot caught a flash of resentment. Yet you owed him money, he said. Did he taunt you with his past wealth while pressing you for repayment? Clara's eyes blazed. He was insufferable, but I didn't kill him for it. Her denial was fierce, but Poirot saw fear beneath her anger. Fear of exposure, perhaps. Victor was next, his casual demeanour fraying under Poirot's gaze. Monsieur Victor, the diary suggests Sir Reginald planned to limit your inheritance, perhaps because of your debts. Did you find the chest, learn of the dagger, and use it to silence him? Victor's laugh was brittle. I didn't even know about some Shanghai fling, and I wouldn't rummage through dusty attics for a knife. I was in bed, ask Amelia. His defiance rang hollow, and Poirot noted Amelia's quick nod, her eyes avoiding his. Mademoiselle Amelia, he said gently, you feared Sir Reginald's accusations. Did you know of the dagger's history, perhaps through Victor? She shook her head, tears spilling. I only knew he hated me. I'd never seen that dagger before. Her distress seemed genuine, but Poirot wondered if her loyalty to Victor hid a shared act. Dr. Blackwood's turn came, and Poirot held up the vial of sedative powder from the chest. Doctor, this sleeping draught from Shanghai matches the smudge in the alcove. Could it have been used to subdue Sir Reginald before the dagger struck? Blackwood's face remained a mask. I've no knowledge of that powder. It's old, likely ineffective. Anyone could have taken it from the attic. His calm was unnerving, and Poirot pressed. You had access to the household, to its secrets. Did Sir Reginald confide in you about Mei Ling? Blackwood hesitated, then admitted. He mentioned a regret from Shanghai, but no details. I prescribed him sedatives for insomnia, nothing more. Poirot filed away the admission. Blackwood's knowledge of sedatives made him a candidate for the powder's use. Miss Forbes, clutching her notebook, spoke before Poirot could address her. Monsieur Poirot, I found the key, but I swear I never saw that chest before. Her voice was high, desperate. Poirot tilted his head. Mademoiselle, you were in the drawing room late, near the alcove. Did you see the dagger moved from its display? Lydia's cheeks flushed. No, I was writing, not watching the wall, but I did see Sir Reginald pacing earlier, muttering about a reckoning. I thought he was drunk. Her observation aligned with the servant's accounts, but her proximity to the crime scene kept her in Poirot's sights. Poirot stepped back, letting the room absorb his questions. The Shanghai connection had rattled them. Evelyn's guarded sorrow, Clara's bitter edge, Victor's defensive bluster, Amelia's tears, Blackwood's cool detachment, and Lydia's nervous insistence. The dagger's history suggested a deliberate choice, a symbol of betrayal or vengeance. The sedative powder hinted at a calculated murder, not a spur-of-the-moment act. But who had known enough to weave these elements together? The crumpled note, "Meet me at midnight," suggested a trap, and the key's discovery pointed to someone familiar with the manor's hidden places. As the group dispersed, Poirot caught a glance between Victor and Amelia, a silent pact that set his instincts alight. He also noticed Clara whispering to Blackwood, who nodded curtly. Lydia lingered, her eyes on the sketch of Mei Ling, as if it stirred a memory. Poirot's little grey cells buzzed with possibilities. The killer was among them, their mask slipping with each revelation. He needed to trace the powder's origins further and confirm the dagger's path from display to murder weapon. The manor's staff might hold more clues, or perhaps a forgotten letter lay hidden, waiting to name the culprit. The library's clock struck 7, its chimes echoing like a countdown. Poirot felt the case nearing its climax, the threads of motive and opportunity tightening. The next chapter would see him closing in, piecing together the final clues to unmask the killer behind the painted screen. Stay tuned as the shadows of Ashford Manor reveal their darkest truth. Chapter 10. The Truth Behind the Screen. The final evening at Ashford Manor descended with a quiet menace, the air heavy with the promise of resolution. Hercule Poirot stood in the drawing room, the Chinese painted screen looming behind him, its dragons seeming to coil in anticipation. The household gathered once more, their faces a mix of dread and curiosity. Lady Evelyn's weary grace, Victor's tense defiance, Amelia's fragile composure, Clara's sharp-eyed suspicion, Dr. Blackwood's stoic calm, and Miss Forbes's nervous stillness. Inspector Davies and the Scotland Yard officer flanked the doors, their presence a silent signal that the end was near. Poirot's little grey cells had woven the clues together. The diary, the note, the powder, the photograph, the key, and the phoenix dagger, into a tapestry that revealed the killer's identity. Tonight, he would unmask the murderer and lay bare the secrets that led to Sir Reginald Harrington's death. Poirot began, his voice clear and commanding. "Mes amis, a crime has been solved. The murder of Sir Reginald was no act of impulse but a calculated strike, born of betrayal and greed hidden behind this painted screen." He gestured to the silk panels, their beauty a stark contrast to the ugliness they concealed. "Let us unravel the truth step by step." He held up the red leather diary. Sir Reginald feared for the estate's future. He wrote of Victor's debts, Clara's secrets, and a past love in Shanghai. But one entry stood out. "Clara knows too much. Must act soon. What did you know, Madame Clara?" Clara's face flushed, her hands gripping her chair. "I told you he was paranoid. I knew nothing worth killing for." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Non, madame. You knew of his plan to change the will, to limit Victor's inheritance and expose your financial ruin. You owed him a debt you could not repay, and he threatened to humiliate you before Lady Evelyn." Clara's lips trembled, but she said nothing, her silence damning. Poirot turned to the crumpled note. "Meet me at midnight. We must settle this." He held it aloft. This lured Sir Reginald to the alcove, where the dagger waited. But who wrote it? The paper matches the manor's stationery, used most by Miss Forbes. Lydia gasped, her notebook falling to the floor. "I didn't write it, I swear." Poirot nodded. "Indeed, mademoiselle, you did not. But you found the key, oui? A key to a chest that held the dagger's history, and a sedative powder." He produced the vial and the packet from the attic chest. "This sleeping draught from Shanghai was found in the alcove and the study. It was used to subdue Sir Reginald before the fatal strike, ensuring no struggle. Only one among you has the knowledge to use such a substance." He turned to Dr. Blackwood, whose glasses glinted as he shifted. "Doctor, you denied knowing this powder, yet your expertise suggests otherwise. Did you supply it?" Blackwood's voice was steady. "I prescribed sedatives for Reginald's insomnia, nothing more." Poirot tilted his head. "Perhaps, but your calm conceals much." Poirot then revealed the photograph of Mei Ling and the journal's entries. The phoenix dagger was a gift to a woman Sir Reginald loved and left. Its use was no accident. It was a symbol, chosen to wound as much as to kill. He faced Lady Evelyn. "Madame, you knew of this past. Did it drive you to vengeance?" Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "I forgave him long ago. I had no reason to harm him." Poirot believed her, her grief too raw to be feigned. His gaze shifted to Victor and Amelia. "Monsieur Victor, you stood to lose everything if Sir Reginald altered the will, and Mademoiselle Amelia, his accusations threatened your future. Did you act together?" Victor shot to his feet. "This is madness!" "We were in bed." Amelia nodded, tears streaming. Poirot raised a hand. "Your loyalty is touching, but the truth lies elsewhere." Poirot paced, his voice rising. "The clues point to one who knew the dagger's history, had access to the powder, and could move unseen. The key, found by Miss Forbes, was no accident. It was planted to divert suspicion. The killer is cunning, blending into the shadows of this house." He stopped before Clara Harrington. "Madame Clara, you are the murderer." The room erupted in gasps. Clara's face drained of colour. "You're insane." "I was in my room." Poirot shook his head. "Non, madame. You knew of Mei Ling from Reginald's boasts, and you found the chest in the attic, where you took the dagger and the sedative. You wrote the note, luring him to the alcove. You slipped the powder into his brandy during the card game, ensuring he was drowsy. Then at midnight you struck, using the dagger to symbolize his betrayal. Not just to you, but to the family's honor. The note, the shadows know, was your flourish, a taunt to those who underestimated you." Clara laughed, a harsh, desperate sound. "You have no proof." Poirot held up a tiny fragment of charred paper from the fireplace. "This, madam, is from a letter you burned, matching the note's ink. And the powder on your gloves, found in your room by Inspector Davies, matches the alcove's smudge." Clara's defiance crumbled, her shoulders slumping. "He was going to ruin me," she whispered. "He'd tell Evelyn I'd mismanaged funds, cut me off." "I couldn't let him," Victor shouted. "Aunt Clara, how could you?" Amelia sobbed, while Evelyn covered her face. Blackwood and Lydia stared, stunned. Poirot continued, his voice softer. "You moved the screen to hide the body, hoping to delay discovery. But the key, dropped in haste, betrayed you. Lydia's find was your undoing." Clara's eyes glistened, but she said no more as the Scotland Yard officer stepped forward, handcuffs ready. Poirot addressed the room. "The shadows have spoken, and justice is served. Sir Reginald's death was a tragedy of greed and pride, but the truth always finds its way." The household dispersed in silence, the weight of Clara's confession lingering. Inspector Davies nodded to Poirot, respect in his eyes. "Well done, monsieur." As the manor settled into an uneasy peace, Poirot stood by the painted screen, its dragons now still. The case was closed, but the scars it left would linger. He turned to the audience, his voice warm. "If you've enjoyed this tale of mystery, please like and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us. Comment below with your thoughts, and stay tuned for more adventures where the little grey cells triumph.